Dear respected Thai, dear noble community, today is July the 15th in the year 2018, and we are in the Lower Hamlet. And today we start the second week of our summer retreat. In the first week of the summer retreat, we have learned that to be truly alive means to be truly there. And to practice meditation is to learn to come home to the body, to allow our mind to come back to our body. In today's day, most of the time our body is here, but our mind is elsewhere. And we create and we learn to have habits that makes us go further and further away from who we are. We start to lose touch with who we are. And we start to create and we start to generate tension and stress within first the body, and then it penetrates to our mind. And we see that we need to learn to slow down. That is why the first practice of meditation is learning to stop. Stopping here is not physical stop, but stopping from the thinking, from the worries, from the fear, and being aware of what is going on inside of us. Because we are not aware, we continue to have stress, we continue to have tension. And when we learn to stop, we learn to be with ourselves, we learn to recognize why I am feeling tension within my body, why I am feeling pain within my body, why there is a burden that is heavy inside my heart. It may be there, and it may have been we've been carrying it without knowing. So now that we are here, we learn to generate the energy of mindfulness. Mindfulness is a seed that each and every one of us, we have inside of us. Mindfulness is like a light. It shows us the dark areas inside of us and around us. And to generate mindfulness is very simple and it's very concrete. Whenever we listen to the sound of the bell at the practice center, we learn to stop physically and mentally. And we direct our attention to the in-breath and the out-breath. That moment of being aware of the in-breath and being aware of the out-breath, we are stopping. We are letting our mind take refuge in our breathing. Our breathing becomes the bridge that brings the mind home to the body. It's very simple, but it's very effective. When you are caught in your worries, in your thinking, and you know you are caught in your worry or your thinking, that is mindfulness. And to go further with the practice, we learn to let the thinking take refuge in the breath. We don't have to push the thinking away. We just direct the thinking to the in-breath and the out-breath. And our breathing becomes the mindfulness that guides the body and the mind to be one together. And right away, you will start to feel there is a calm and a stillness start to be born. We all have the ability to be still. Being still is a very important practice in the practice of meditation. To sit and do nothing is an art. How was your sitting this morning? Were you consumed by your thoughts? Or were you able to enjoy and do nothing? In your 30 minutes of sitting meditation, nobody is allowed to bother you. The only person that will bother you is yourself. But with the practice, we learn to recognize ourselves more. And we learn to offer ourselves nourishments. Nourishment for our soul. In our practice, we share about the Dharma body. We have a physical body that is manifested thanks to our parents. And at the same time, we have a spiritual body. A body that needs peace, needs stillness, and it needs mindfulness. And when we learn to come home to our breathing and we learn to recognize our in-breath and our out-breath, we are eating spiritual food. Somebody who practices mindfulness can be solid as a mountain. In any situation, they do not waver. Their two roots are firmly in the earth. Their mind is grounded in their body. They are not carried away by emotions. They are not carried away by fears. We may not yet have that capacity, but the daily practice that we practice here in Plum Village is the nourishment, the food that we are eating to strengthen our Dharma body. When you sit with someone who is solid, who is still, sometimes you don't have to practice. You just have to sit beside them and you feel that peace, that stillness, and you get to borrow their mindfulness. So being in a practice center like this, we have hundreds of practitioners here. We have to know how to connect with one another, connect with the practice of one another. When we were all chanting and listening, the chanter and the listener are together. The monks and nuns up here are not performing. It's a practice. And when we listen, we learn to listen to ourselves. Maybe the music, the melody, the energy is a condition for us to be in touch with the peace within us. While we are here practicing in Plum Village, we will be reminded on a daily basis to come back to the breathing and learn to stop. That is why whenever we hear the sound of the bell, that is an invitation for us to stop. The bell, whether it's the bell in the meditation hall or whether it's the chime of a clock, those are all opportunities for us. We have to allow ourselves. At first, it is not a habit yet. We have to mentally remind ourselves, the bell, stop. Put two hands beside my body and really come back to the breathing. Let your breathing guide you. Let your breathing relax your body. Relaxation can be done in any position as long as you know how to direct your energy. And as you practice the mindfulness of stopping with the invitation of the bells, this will slowly become a habit. And this is a good habit, a habit of learning to stop. When we know how to stop physically, then we can give a chance for our mind to also rest. Because body and mind are one. This is what we learn. And the body can support the mind. And at the same time, the mind can support the body. So when we practice for our body, we're also practicing for our mind. And when we learn to calm our mind through the exercise of mindful breathing, with the practice and awareness of interbeing, it will automatically affect the relaxation in the body. When we come home to our body and we listen to our body is trying to communicate to us. The first thing I always do in sitting meditation is I always pay attention to my shoulders. Usually when you are stressed, you're tense, the first reaction from your body will be the tension in the shoulders. So I give myself the time to be aware of the shoulders, and I learn to guide my shoulders to relax with every muscle through the breathing. Because every in-breath that we take in, we're offering ourselves life. The cell also needs the nourishment from the breath. Our breathing is always there with us. As long as we are alive, we will always be breathing. The first act that we did as a human being, when we were introduced into the world, was to make that first in-breath and that first out-breath. And that was a miracle. That was a moment of wonder. We learned to be independent. We have been in the womb of our mother for 9 months, and our mother breathes for us, eats for us, rests for us. And therefore we have this very deep connection with our mother. And that moment that it was time for us to manifest, we learned to be independent in our breathing. But we know how to breathe because our mother has been teaching us how to breathe. And that was the moment of wonder, of the first in-breath and the first out-breath. So that moment, your Dharma body was also born. Your spiritual body. And for some of us, we have had the conditions to have come here and be in touch with the practice at a young age. Like the children that were all sitting here. They're very lucky. They have the condition to nourish their spiritual body at a very young age. Whether they know it or not, just by being in the community, by being in the presence of happiness and of stillness, their Dharma body is being nourished. Kids are already little bodhisattvas. They are quite mindful. When they are happy, they laugh, they play. When they are sad, they cry. Or they tell us they're not happy. But slowly, they learn to cover up, to be adults, to be mature, to be professionals. And slowly we lose the connection with ourselves, the connection with our feelings and our emotions. And the more we disconnect from ourselves, then we also see that we disconnect from our aspirations, our joy, our happiness. So mindfulness is a source of happiness. When we can come back to the in-breath and out-breath, that is mindfulness of breathing. Mindfulness is always mindfulness of something. When you are listening here, and you are fully present. This is mindfulness of listening. And we listen in a way to be open. We have to experience the Dharma like Dharma rain. We are a field of many seeds. Seeds of mindfulness, seeds of joy, seeds of happiness, seeds of concentration. And we have to allow the rain to penetrate into the soil of our consciousness. If we are listening and we are comparing notes, then nothing will come in. It will come in and then it will go out. But if we learn to be open, whatever comes in will penetrate into the soil of our consciousness, and it will nourish the seeds of mindfulness, the seeds of understanding and of love. And when we continue to nourish the energy of mindfulness, then we can direct our energy of mindfulness into our daily life. What attracted me to Plum Village was that everything we learn in Plum Village, we have to always ask, how do I apply this into my daily life? It's not, the Buddha says it is like this, therefore that is the truth. But here we learn the Buddha and our teachers offer us the teaching, and each and every one of us have a teacher inside. And we have to experiment with the practice, and we have to put our own energy and our own determination into the practice. And it gives you strength so that when you leave Plum Village, you can still practice. It may be more difficult because you don't have the same environment and you don't have the same friends that are here with you. But when you learn to apply this in this retreat, it will embody you the strength to know that I can do it. Yes, I can do this. And it's only a matter of how we apply it. So while we are here, fully invest our time and our energy into the cultivation of the mindfulness practice so that we can establish a foundation for ourselves. So that when we are not here in Plum Village, we still have the strength and the insight that yes, we can do the practice. Just by remembering that we can breathe gives us the insight that I can practice. Let us allow our breathing to be our friend. Make your breath your closest friend. Your breath will always be with you, no matter where you go. If you feel alone, if you feel isolated, it is the breathing that you can take refuge in. It is a very dear friend that is always there with us. And by connecting to our breathing, we connect within ourselves. And when we look deeply inside of ourselves, we actually know that we are not alone. Because inside of us, we are a continuation of our ancestors, our mother and our father. And knowing that we are a continuation, then we also carry all of our ancestors inside of us. Let us listen to one sound of the bell to connect with our in-breath and our out-breath. Recognize this friend that is here with us. By practicing mindfulness, we may be able to recognize that life is happening in the here and the now. And one of the fruit of the Buddha's enlightenment and the fruit of our practice is learning to be in the here and the now. And it is the art of dwelling happily in the present moment. Learning to be in the present moment is one of the fundamental practice of Buddhism. Because in the present moment, it carries the past, and at the same time, it is building the future. This is, in our studies, we learn about the 3 times: the past, the present, and the future. A lot of us may find ourselves always being carried away by the regrets and the sorrow of the past. And we may be entrapped in the past. And every day we let it carry on. And we are not able to connect with the wonders of life in the present moment. Or we may have fear about the future. Fear about our planet, fear about the next generation. But we have learned that the best way to take care of the future is to take care of the present moment. Because the present moment is the moment that is taking care of tomorrow. And the present moment, who we are today, is thanks to the past experience. If we have mindfulness, we can look at the past and the future and the present with a new eye. We have a new lens, a lens of mindfulness. We may see that there are suffering that we have, and it's from our past experience. And instead of regretting and letting it drag on, we re-evoke the story over and over again. We learn to put a stop to it. We learn to recognize it. And we learn to call it by its true name. Our teacher has a poem, "Please call me by my true name." And in our daily life, we need to learn to call our suffering by its true name. We have to recognize, why am I feeling down? You have to recognize, you have to come to the core of it. And only by learning to stop first, you have to be like the lake. When the lake is not still, it doesn't reflect what is manifesting. But when the lake is calm, it starts to reflect everything that appears. Either it's the blue sky, the dark clouds, the beautiful tree, the sunshine. It will learn to reflect everything. Just like that, as a practitioner, when we know how to come back to the present moment, we allow ourselves to be still, and we then have the capacity to invite a difficult situation, a difficult feeling, a suffering up. And we recognize it. And by looking into our suffering, we then may see the causes and condition of it. We learn that everything needs food to stay alive. So our suffering also needs food. And we may be nourishing it daily without knowing. We are always consuming. We're consuming through what we see, what we hear, what we eat, even by smell. And collective consciousness is also a consumption. When you live in a busy city, like New York or Tokyo, you will be consumed by the energy that is present in the environment. You may have the aspiration to slow down more, but because the collective energy is very fast, so naturally it pushes us in that direction. And we may think that that is normal because everybody is doing that. So we follow that stream of life. And from time to time, we have the insight, I need a retreat. I need to treat myself. I need to come to a place to nourish myself in nature, in the presence of community where there is peace and stillness. And we need to also let our consciousness bathe in this collective energy of stillness and peace. And the more we be in touch with that energy, the more our Dharma body, our spiritual body, is being washed, being perfumed by this energy. And we learn to have this capacity to also generate mindfulness from within. At the beginning, we may need to take more refuge in the collective community. Therefore, when we sit all together, there's a powerful energy. There's a silence that is very powerful. And when we walk all together, and we walk slowly, and we generate peace in every step, that is called walking meditation, and we're offering back to Mother Earth what Mother Earth is offering to us on a daily basis. Our teacher always says, walk like you're kissing the earth. Because we are part of the earth, and we may see that we take from the earth is always giving. But at the same time, we are a part of the ecosystem. And learning to generate mindfulness in our steps is also offering back to Mother Earth the peace and stability that is present in the trees, in the grass. This may sound funny, but I like the beginning of the retreat. I like the middle of the retreat when everyone is here. And I like the end of the retreat. If you ever get to experience the aftermath of a retreat, it's very quiet in the hamlet. And I can feel that the grass and the tree also enjoy the stillness, the calm. But the tree, the grass, the bamboo knows that while everyone is here, it also wants to give its best to everyone. And when you are aware of this, then our way of being will change. We start to have a different relationship with Mother Earth. In the 5 contemplation before we eat, there's a contemplation that says, I like to eat with mindfulness so as to be worthy to receive this food. And one time, one young man asked me, why do I have to be worthy to receive the food? And at that time, I didn't have an answer. I said, good question. I need to meditate on this. And as I reflect on this question, I start to see what that contemplation is telling us to contemplate. It is because we see food as a means. Because we are hungry, we need energy, we eat. And food is just an object. for nourishment. But in life, food is a part of the earth. And when we don't have a relationship with the food, then we just eat as a way of fulfilling the hunger. But once we start to see the wonders, the miracle of a piece of bread that is in front of us, we know that a bread comes from the whole cosmos coming together, from the rain, the sun, the baker. And then we start to see that this piece of bread is the body of the cosmos. And we start to see that by eating this food, this piece of bread, we have a connection with the sun, the earth, the rain. And what is born at that moment is gratitude. And when you have gratitude, food is very different. Because you have a lens of mindfulness. You see that the piece of carrot or the piece of broccoli is not just a broccoli, but it has manifested thanks to the many conditions to be there for us to enjoy. And when we have that awareness, our eating becomes very different. Our relationship with food becomes very different. We start to know what is moderation. We start to know to eat what is in front of us. Most of the time, we are eating our projects, we're eating our worries, our fear. And that's why when we eat in our Dharma sharing family, and we have the first 15 to 20 minutes of silence, that silence is not for us to not talk. Talking is wonderful, but having a connection with our food is at the same time very important. So in those moments of silence, when we learn to eat the food mindfully, then we start to have a connection with the food, then maybe we can see ourselves as worthy to enjoy this piece of food. So this is about our relationship with what is outside of us. Because we may see man is very important. And because we see man is very important, we start to be disconnected to everything that is around us. And then this will slowly translate into our relationship with our loved ones, with our children, with our family, with our partners. By eating mindfully, we nourish the insight of interbeing. I am present today thanks to the many conditions that have come together. So when we come to the present moment and we learn to dwell in the present moment, we learn to take care of our past. And then we learn to create a beautiful future. Let us listen to one sound of the bell. A mindfulness practitioner is like a gardener. We learn to take care of our garden. We have flowers that manifest on a daily basis. And we also need to learn to recognize the flower. When we practice mindfulness, to be in the present moment, we may be able to be in touch with the many wonders in the present moment inside of you. When you look and you reflect and you see that you have two good eyes in wonderful conditions, the eyes allow you to see the many thousands of forms, the many colors, your loved ones. That is a condition of happiness. When you brush your teeth and you know you have teeth to brush, that is a moment of happiness. That will change your 2 minutes of brushing teeth. When you go to the toilet and it is happening freely, that is a moment of happiness. If you have ever experienced constipation, you know what suffering is. So when you're able to recognize the daily, everyday joys and happiness, it gives you the insight. Happiness is not very far away. And if you are here with your family on this retreat, please take time to hold the hand of your child to walk. They are still here with us. That is a wonder. One day they will grow. They will learn to see you in them, so they may not to always want to be right beside you. So recognizing this now, later you won't regret. And as a child, if you have your mother, your father here, or even far away, use the technology that is offered in our generation to say how grateful we are that they are present in our life. Nourish the love from within. We don't have to wait for love to come to us. We can generate the love and the happiness from within. And why not give love and happiness to others? And the love that we generate and we offer is boundless, and it will always go on. That is why in the present moment, when you are able to offer love to yourself, and you're able to offer love to the ones around you, that love will go very far into the future. So take time in this retreat to also be in touch with our loved ones, inside of us and outside of us. The compassion that we are generating for ourselves can also be offered. So when we practice as a practitioner, we're not very selfish. The peace and the joy that we generate for ourselves can be very beneficial for many others. That's why our teacher has a calligraphy that says, peace in oneself, peace in the world. But we always have to start first with ourselves. Therefore, we have the insight that mindfulness, love, and happiness can be generated from within. In my, when I was growing up, I had a complex. I grew up as a Vietnamese, but in the West, I grew up in Canada. And a lot of us Asian Americans or North Americans, we have the complex we call the banana complex. We are yellow outside, but inside we want to feel Western. and there was a disconnect that we had to work with. Am I Vietnamese or am I Canadian? And this was always a struggle growing up. And thanks to the practice, I see the beauty of my Vietnamese culture, and I see the beauty of my Western culture. And it doesn't have to be East or West, but there is beauty on both sides. And there's also suffering on both sides. And I learned to embrace both culture, and therefore I become more rich as a person. So diversity in our age is very common. And this is an age where we can benefit a lot from the different culture and the openness that is very alive in today's day. In my family, I have members who were refugees from Vietnam. And they had to leave the country in the late 80s and early 90s. And I remember I had one older cousin, who had a lot of suffering. And as I was growing up, myself and my younger siblings, we were always bullied by our cousin. And we didn't know why. I didn't know why. I was never mean to him. I was never disrespectful. But I don't know why I was being treated this way. And slowly I start to have a fear of elder brothers, elders in society. And this fear was transmitted through me, through my cousin. And as a monk, I learned to take care of this fear. Every time I see some elder brothers in the community, naturally, like a turtle, I shrink a little bit. And I started to ask, why am I behaving like this? I think they're probably the nicest people in the world at the moment. But there's a natural reaction. And I started to use my meditation to reflect on this. And I start to see that this was from my past experience. And because my cousin suffered a lot through the refugee camp, through the hardship that he had to endure, and as a young person, he wasn't lucky to be taught how to take care of emotions, how to take care of feelings of anxiety, of difficulties. So the only way to express and let it out was to find somebody where he can direct that to. And that was us, me. And so that was an insight that I had. And I said, wow, he must have suffered so much. And because he didn't know how to take care of his suffering, therefore he had to behave that way. And as I was growing as a teenager, I started to see myself behave also very aggressively to my younger siblings, younger cousins. And I didn't know why. I know I love them a lot, but when emotions and feeling arises in me, I also react exactly the same way. So I started to see that this is a cycle, samsara, a cycle of actions being transmitted from generations to generations. And I had to learn to stop. I had to learn to recognize that I also have this energy inside of me. It was very painful at the beginning. I said, how can I, who is a monk, also have this energy, also have this seed? And I had to learn to recognize and knowing that this is also me. And if I don't practice with it, and I don't learn to recognize and embrace it, then I will not transform it. And it will be handed and passed on to my cousins or my younger brothers and sisters. And after only 4 years as a monk, I had the courage to call my cousins, who I recognized as we were growing up, that I was also aggressive to. And I learned to say sorry. And my cousin said, why are you saying sorry? And I said, you don't need, no, I said, you don't need to know. Just please accept it. And she did. And this is when she was much younger. And when she became a young adult, she remembered it. And she asked me later on, Brother Phap, why did you say sorry to me that one time? And then I had the chance to explain. And at that moment of communication, I saw inside of me that that energy and that behavior was embraced and transformed. There was a stop to that action. And maybe if I didn't have the chance to practice, then that transmission for sure has been passed on to my cousins, my younger siblings. And they may not know why they will behave that way. And they will pass it on to the next generation. So when we meditate on the 3 times, past, present, and future, we allow ourselves the time and the space to transform past and at the same time to take care of future. And this can be done by each and every one of us. But first we have to learn to transform and to recognize inside of us first. Recognize the suffering that is manifesting, the habits that doesn't offer us the right nutriments. We need to identify it. And only by doing it for ourselves, then we have the ability and the capacity to transmit as well as to transform. So dear parents, our daily actions, the way we speak, the way we share, the way we are, is all a transmission to our children. Children are like sponges. They will soak up everything that is around them. And when we have the insight that they are our continuation, our daily action can be more mindful. We don't need to tell them directly, but they will learn by our way of loving, our way of understanding, our way of listening. And that is why in Plum Village, the kids, they come here, and you may ask us, why don't we teach them how to meditate? Because we see at this moment, what is at the same time as important as meditation is letting them soak in the energy of happiness and joy and safety that is available here. My first time in Plum Village was when I was 9 years old, in 1996. I didn't remember anything but the experience of feeling safe and feeling joy and happiness in that place. And that is what I carried away when I left Plum Village. And the more I come, the more I mature, then I learn. And it becomes second nature. The practice becomes second nature. So if we came to Plum Village not knowing that there will be children in this retreat, surprise. And it's not a retreat of silence, but it's a retreat of generating mindfulness, concentration, and happiness as a collective to offer and to transmit to one another in order to nourish one another. We do have times in our practice center when it's more quiet, when it's more formal practices. So just to let you know. Let's enjoy. In the in-breath and the out-breath, we have the capacity to learn to let go. Let go of our worries, let go of the fear to be in the present moment. Letting go is a very important practice in meditation. Only when we learn to let go can we continue to grow. If you're climbing a ladder and you're at step number 6 and you want to reach step number 7, you have to learn to let go of step number 6 to come to step number 7. So learning to let go is an art in our practice. And letting go can be very freeing. Letting go here is not only of our possessions, but letting go of ideas. We may have ideas of how we want to be. What is happiness? What is joy? And maybe all of those ideas are at the same time the exact obstacle that is blocking us to see really what is happiness and what is joy. So if we have an idea that we have been clinging onto for a very long time, and that is not offering us joy and happiness, but is giving us more hardship and more heaviness, then maybe we need to learn to abandon and let go. Suffering is the same. Suffering in Buddhism is a noble truth. It's a noble truth because when we recognize suffering, we start to understand ourselves more and we allow ourselves to learn from past experience. But suffering can be very addictive. We may identify ourselves with suffering. Because I am suffering, I am like this. Because I am like this, you have to accept me this way. So suffering can also be a trap. So if we have recognized suffering, but we are at the same time not able to let go of it yet, then we have to meditate more and see why we are so attached to it. Can you hear me? Yeah. 1, 2. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. No longer in a hurry. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Somewhere to go, something to do. But I don't need to hurry. We don't need to hurry. The sound is good now, huh? Okay. So to let go is also a way of freeing ourselves. Letting go of our worries, of our anxiety. Sometimes to let go is very challenging. So have the aspiration of letting go, but then learn to dwell with what can be present in the here and now, and that is the mindfulness that we can generate. The more we are established in the present moment, then we allow the food to not nourish the difficulty, the suffering, and slowly, the suffering, the difficulty will have less food and will be weaker. And then our mindfulness and our understanding will be stronger to embrace and to transform. So as a practitioner, we also have to learn to take our time. After this Dharma talk, it doesn't mean go sit under a tree and learn to let everything go. Step by step. We have to be very patient with ourselves. Breathing also grows. Our insight of the practice also grows. The breathing that I am experiencing now is very different than the breathing of 17 years ago when I first started on this path. My understanding of letting go is very different than my understanding of letting go in the past. So even if we have been here for many times, the practice is still the same, but our understanding of it will develop and grow in a very different way. Because as a person, we're always changing.
Lên bằng nhiều cách khác nhau.
So our understanding and our practice is also always growing. So at the same time, we may not feel we have progressed as much as we want, but
Có thể
but the practice is not to be caught in what we want to be, who we want to be. The practice is very organic, is very natural, and our transformation is the same. But we are allowed to have aspiration. We're allowed to aspire to be more mindful, to be more peaceful, and to have the capacity to transform. But if you are caught in the idea, I'm a bad practitioner, learn to let go. And come back to the in-breath and the out-breath, just as we had as a beginner. We call this the beginner's mind. The beginner's mind is very powerful. When you are first in touch with the practice, the fire to practice is very strong. You can endure anything, hours and hours of sitting, no problem. But the more and the more you don't nourish the joy in the practice, then it becomes a work. And once again, there is not joy and happiness. So you've been hearing in my sharing a lot about joy and happiness because it's very crucial for the practice of meditation. Just like when we want to take care of our suffering, like a doctor, when it wants to operate on a patient, the doctor makes sure the patient is healthy and strong before operating. So as a practitioner, it's the same. If we want to transform our difficulties, but we're not yet strong yet, we have to nourish our joy and our peace to develop that stability in order to have a foundation to look at the difficulties, to embrace it and to transform it. Like I shared with you, it took me 4 years as a monk to say sorry. It doesn't mean that the first 4 years wasn't successful. They were all conditions that I was creating and generating in order for that moment to be ripe, for that moment to take action. So as a practitioners, also give ourselves time in our own development in our practice. And after today, this practice we have the practice of walking meditation. Walking meditation is one of the core practices of Plum Village. Walking in a way that allows us to be happy with every step that we make. Every in-breath and every out-breath, we combine our steps. As you breathe in, breathe left foot, right foot, left foot. As you breathe out, be aware of the contact of your steps, from the heel to the sole, to the tiptoes, and be one with your movement. And when you walk this way, you're also caring for your body. There is a relaxation in the walk. So Zen here is a Zen of gentleness and softness, of relaxation. We allow ourselves to be in the body, not rigid, but full of care and tenderness. And when we walk this way, we are walking like the Buddha. We are walking like our teacher, our ancestors who have learned to walk in a way that brings peace back to the earth. So peace here is not very far. Peace is in this community here. When we walk as a community and everyone is generating the power of compassion, the power of peace, that energy is being transmitted back. We don't have to have signs. We don't have to announce. It is through our action. It is being translated without words. And when we walk in this way, we can be in touch with the wonders around us. The wonders that is available for us. And then we don't have to go very far to look for paradise. With this awareness, happiness and paradise can be right here, right now. That gives you the power to take care of the now. The now has the ability to heal the past, to care for the past, to embrace the past, and at the same time, help yourself grow, develop, and move forward into the future as a person with stability, with stillness within. So past, present, future are all in unison when we practice and we have this awareness. So the steps that you make today is not just for you, it's also for the next generation. And some of our ancestors have been running their whole life. And therefore, we may have been running our whole life. And when we are able to walk this way, we're able to slow down and we're able to stop. We're allowing our ancestors inside of us to slow down and to stop. So we are giving the opportunity of our parents, our mother, our father, our grandfather, a way of practice through us. And this is the insight of interbeing. So through us, we are practicing not just for us, for the society also. So in our walking meditation today as a community, we learn to walk as a collective body, like a river. And we flow together. Don't worry where you are going. Walk just to walk. Enjoy every step. Enjoy every breath. You have nowhere to go, nothing to do, just like the song. And this is a retreat for all of us. And if we are unable to dwell in the steps, look on our right, look on our left, see the practitioner practicing, and continue to flow. Don't beat ourselves up. Allow ourselves to continue and allow the collective energy to support us. That is one of the gift that we have when we come to a practice center where there's many practitioners, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, even the children are practicing. There's another practice that we don't have a chance to do in this retreat, in the schedule, is slow walking meditation. And this practice is to just be one breath and one step. But we have free time sometimes in our daily schedule. We also have a lazy day in our retreat. And that day is a day for us to practice what we want to enjoy. We may like to experience slow walking meditation. And you pick a distance from here to that rock, from here to that bell. And as you breathe in, you dwell with that step. One breath for one step. And you take your time. And while you practice like this, you are generating a concentration. And this concentration helps you maintain the mindfulness for a very long degree. So in breath, one step. Out breath, one step. And it's okay to walk this slow in Plum Village. Nobody will say, oh, what is he doing? But here everyone will go, he's practicing slow walking meditation. Maybe out there in society it may look a little weird, but here it's okay. And when we walk and we have arrived with every step, you can celebrate with a smile of liberation that I have arrived. Arrive here is in the present moment. And I am home. Home here is with myself, the presence. That is why one of the fruits of, the first fruit of the Plum Village practice is to learn to arrive. I have arrived, I am home. With this insight, I have arrived, I am home, has empowered our teacher to succeed and to develop and to grow this community, engaged Buddhism, as well as applied Buddhism. Because when our teacher was exiled from Vietnam, it's very difficult. You could only imagine not being allowed home to your loved ones, to your friends, your community. And we are very grateful that he never lost his faith in the practice. And he continued to nourish it. And it's through the insight of I have arrived, I am home. If I cannot be at home in Vietnam, it's okay. Because everywhere I go, as a practitioner, anywhere can be home. Anywhere I can arrive in the present moment. Whether it is in Europe, America, or Asia, my true destination is the here and the now. So while we walk today in the practice of walking meditation, give ourselves the awareness of arriving in the present moment with every step. And today we have a special event that is very optional. It's to learn to enjoy watching the World Cup together. Like I said, it's very optional. So monks and nuns are very human. We also enjoy the art of the sport. And we know that a lot of us here will also enjoy. But we can meditate a little bit on this. France or Croatia. It doesn't matter. What matters is we will enjoy watching it together. And the notion of who wins is just short time. You win, you get a cup, present moment, wonderful moment, and then life continues on. So when we watch together, we watch in that spirit. We support each other in the collective watching. You may not know, but one time our teacher Tai came and watched with us the World Cup. And everybody was watching the screen, and he took his chair, and he sat and watched the community. Because he wanted to see how his monks and nuns will react. And there were moments that the brothers, the sister, ooh. And Tai was okay, because he said, that is human. We are allowed to express, but at the same time, we don't have to be caught in feeling of losing or winning. So to let go. So watching soccer, watching football today, if you come, and if one team wins and one team loses, it will be like that. Suffering is very optional, okay? And for me, what I carried from watching the game as a community is not what happens on the screen. It's actually what is happening all around me. So when we watch together, if you are coming, then we remind ourselves in that spirit. Watching to be as a spiritual family, enjoy the art of the sport, and at the same time, suffering is very optional. And for those of us who don't want to watch the sport, please enjoy the nature, the community that is around. So thank you very much, dear everyone. I wish you a wonderful week of practice with us here in Plum Village. Let us listen to 3 sound of the bell.